sun's come up over 1,000 times. Summers and winters have cracked the mountains a little bit, and the rains have brought down some of the dirt. Some babies that weren't even born yet have already begun speaking regular sentences, and people who thought themselves young and spry before notice that they can't quite bound up a flight of stairs the way they used to. All that can happen in 1,000 days. Nature's been pushing and thriving in other ways, too. A number of your young people fell in love and got married. Yes, the mountain got bid away a few fractions of an inch. Millions of gallons of water went by the mill, and here and there a new home was set up under a roof. Almost everybody in the world gets married. In our town, there aren't hardly any exceptions. Almost everybody in the world climbs into their graves married. The first act is called daily life. This act's called love and marriage. I reckon you can tell what the third act's going to be called. So, 3 years later, 1904. It's just before dawn, except this time it's been raining. It's been thundering and pouring. Mrs. Gibbs' garden and Mrs. Webb's, drenched. All those bean poles and pea vines, drenched. All yesterday on Main Street, it was like curtains coming down. It may begin again any minute. There, the 5:45 for Boston is going by. And there's Mrs. Gibbs and Mrs. Webb coming downstairs to get breakfast. I don't have to tell the ladies in my audience that these two women they see before them, they cook 3 meals a day, one for 20 years, the other for 40. And no summer vacation. They cooked, cleaned, washed and ironed the clothes, and not once a nervous breakdown. It's like what one of those Middle West poets said. You've got to love life to have life, and you've got to have life to love life. It's what they call a vicious cycle.
Giddy up, Bessie!
There comes Miss Hannah Newsom, delivering the milk. And there's Sidney Crowder, delivering the papers just like her sister before.
Good morning, Miss Hannah. Morning, Sidney. Anything in the papers I should know about? We're losing just about the best baseball pitcher Grover's Corners ever had, George Gibbs.
Well, I reckon he is.
He could hit and run bases, too.
Yep, he's a mighty fine ball player. Whoa, Bessie! Bessie, get back. I guess I could stop and talk if I have a mind to.
I just don't see how he could give up a thing like that, just to get married. Did you, Miss Hannah?
No, Sidney. I never had no talent that way. Oh, good morning, Constable.
Oh, good morning, Hannah.
You're up early.
Yeah, I was hoping to do anything about the rising river. It's been flooding all night.
Sidney Crowell here is all worked up about George Gibbs quitting baseball.
Back in '84, there was a player named Hank Todd. He was loads better than George Gibbs. Way better. In fact, he even went on to the town over and became Parsons. Shame. So how's the weather?
Oh, it ain't bad. I think maybe it'll clear up for good, you know? Come on, Bessie.
Good morning, Hannah.
Do you think it's gonna rain again? Well, it's rained so heavy, I think maybe it'll clear up for good.
Certainly hope it will.
How much do you need today?
I've got a house full of relations, Hannah. Looks to me like I'll need 3 milk and 2 cream.
My husband wanted me to tell you we hope we'll be very happy together, Miss Webb. I know they will be.
Thank you. And tell your husband I hope he gets there at the wedding.
Oh, he'll be there. He'll be there if he can. Come on, Bessie.
Good morning, Hannah. I told you 4 quarts, but I hope you can spare me another.
Yes, ma'am. And the 2 cream?
How's the weather?
Well, I was just saying how I think it's rained so heavy that it'll clear up. Also, Mr. Newsom wanted me to tell you that we hope we'll be very happy together. I know they will be.
Thank you, and thank Mr. Newsom. We're counting on seeing you at the wedding.
Oh, we'll be there. Can't miss a one like that. Come on, girl.
Well, Mom, the day has come. You're losing one of your children.
Now, don't you say another word, Frank Gibbs. I feel like crying every minute. Sit down and drink your coffee.
Well, Groom's up shaving himself, only there ain't an awful lot to shave. Whistling and singing like he's glad to lose. Every once in a while, I hear him say "I do" to the mirror, but it doesn't sound very convincing to me.
I declare, Frank, I don't know how we get along. I've washed and ironed his clothes for
Well, I was remembering my wedding morning, Julie.
Now don't start that. Frank Gibbs.
Well, I was the scaredest young fellow in the state of New Hampshire. I thought I'd made a mistake for sure. But then I saw you coming down the aisle, and I thought you were the prettiest girl I'd ever seen. No, the only trouble was, I'd never really saw you before. There I was in the Congregational Church, marrying a total stranger.
And how do you think I felt? Frank, weddings are perfectly awful. Farces, that's what they are. Here, I made something for you.
Why, Julia Hersey, French toast.
It ain't hard to make, and I had to do something.
So how'd you sleep last night, Julie?
Well, I heard a lot of the hours struck off.
Yeah, I get shocked every time I think George running off to be a family man, that great gangling thing. I tell you, Julie, there's nothing more terrifying in the world than a son. The relationship between a father and son is the darndest and awkwardest.
Well, mother and daughter's no picnic, let me tell you.
Well, they'll have their own troubles, but everyone has a right to their own troubles.
Yes, people were meant to go through life 2 by 2. It ain't natural to be lonesome.
You know one of the things I was afraid of when I married you, Julie?
Oh, go along with you.
I was afraid we wouldn't have conversation more than last us a few weeks. I was afraid we could sit and eat our meals in silence, but me and you have been conversing for over 20 years without any noticeable barren spells.
Well, good weather, bad weather. Take your choice, but always find something to say. Do you hear Rebecca stirring around upstairs?
Nope. Only day of the year she has been managing everybody's business up there. She was in her room. I got the impression she was crying.
Lord's sakes, this has got to stop. Rebecca! Rebecca, come and get your breakfast.
Good morning, everybody. Only 5 more hours to live.
George Gibbs, where do you think you're going?
Just stepping across the grass to see my girl.
Now, George, you put on your overshoes. It's raining torrents out there.
Oh, Ma, it's just a step.
You will catch your death of cold and cough all through the surface.
George, do as your mother tells you to.
From tomorrow on, you can kill yourself in all weathers. But while you're in my house, you will live wisely, thank you. Here, take a cup of coffee. Perhaps Mrs. Webb is keeping callers at 7 in the morning.
Be back in a minute. Good morning, Miss Webb.
George, you frighten me. Come in a minute out of the wet, but you know I can't ask you in.
Well, why not?
George, you know the rules as well as I do. The groom can't see his bride on his wedding day, not until he sees her in the church.
Oh, that's just a superstition. Good morning, Mr. Webb.
Good morning, George.
Mr. Webb, you don't believe in that superstition, do you?
There's a lot of common sense in some superstitions, George.
Millions have followed it, George. You don't want to be the first to fly in the face of custom.
How is Emily?
Oh, she's asleep.
Emily's asleep?
No wonder. We were up all night sewing and packing. I'll tell you what I'll do. You sit down next to Mr. Webb. And you drink this cup of coffee. I'll go upstairs and see if Emily doesn't come down and surprise you. There's some bacon in the pan, but don't be too long about it.
So, George, how are you?
Fine. Mr. Webb, what's in specific?
Well, you see, on her wedding day, a girl's heads have to be full of clothing or one thing or another. Don't you think that's probably it?
I never thought about it.
Girls have to be mighty nervous on her wedding day.
I wish a fellow could get married without all that marching up and down.
Every man that's ever lived has felt that way about it, George. It's the women folk who built up marriage, my boy. And for a while now, they've had it all on their own. Man looks pretty small at a wedding, George. All those good women standing shoulder to shoulder, making sure the knot is tied in a lining public way.
But you believe in it, don't you?
Yes, don't get me wrong, George. Marriage is a wonderful thing. Wonderful thing. And don't you forget that.
Mr. Webb, how old were you when you got married?
Well, you see, I'd gone to college, and I'd taken a little time to get settled. But, Emily isn't much older than what Mrs. Webb was when we got married. But age hasn't much to do with it, George, not compared with other things.
What were you saying, Mr. Webb?
I don't know. Was I going to say anything? You know, George, I was thinking of some advice my father gave me before I got here. boss. Give her an order, even if it don't make sense, just so she'll learn to obey. If anything about her character irritates you, her conversation, or anything, just get up and walk out of the house. Then she'll learn. Oh, and he said never let her know how much money you have. Never!
Well, Mr. Webb, I don't
So I
think
took the opposite of his advice, and I've been happy ever since. And let that be a lesson to you, George. Never ask for advice on personal matters. George, you gonna raise chickens on your farm?
Huh?
Are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
Well, Uncle
A book came in my office the other day on the final system of raising chickens. I want you to read it. You know, I've been thinking of beginning in my own way, in the backyard. I'd bring the old incubator out the cellar.
Charles, are you talking about that old incubator again? I thought you'd be talking about some useful things.
Well, Myrtle, if you want to give the boys some good advice, I'll leave you alone with them.
George, Emily has to come downstairs and eat her breakfast. She says she loves you, but she doesn't want to set eyes on you. Bye.
Good night. Myrtle, I suppose you don't know about that older superstition.
What superstition?
Since the caveman, no bride and groom should see his father-in-law the day of the wedding. Or even near him. Now remember.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Thank you, Mrs. Webb. Now, I have to interrupt here again. You see, I want to know how all this got started, this wedding. It's planned to spend a lifetime together. I'm awfully interested in how big things like that begin. You know how it is. You're 21 or 22, you make some big decisions, and then whoosh, you're 70. You've been a lawyer for 50 years. The woman at your side has eaten over 70,000 meals with you. How do such things like that begin? George and Emily are going to come out here and show you the conversation they had when, well, as the saying goes, they realized they were meant for each other. But before they come out, I want you to try and remember what it was like to have been very young, particularly the days when you were first in love. You're like a person sleepwalking. You don't quite see the street you're on or hear everything said to you. You're just a little bit insane. Can you bear with me on that? Now, they'll be coming out of school at 3 o'clock. George has been elected president of the junior class. And as it's almost the end of the year, that means he'll be president of the senior class all next year. And Emily's just been elected secretary and treasurer. I don't have to tell you how important that is.
I can't, Louise. I've got to go home. Goodbye. Oh, Ernestine. Ernestine, can you come over and do some Latin tonight? Isn't that sister the worst thing ever? Tell her mother you have to. Goodbye. Goodbye, Helen. Goodbye, Fred.
Can I carry your books home for you?
Why, thank you.
Excuse me a minute. Say, Bob, if I'm a little late, start practice anyway. And give her some long high ones.
All right.
I'm awfully glad you're elected too, Emily.
Thank you.
Emily, why are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
You've been treating me so funny lately.
Well, George, now that you mention it, I might as well tell you. Goodbye, Mr. Corin.
Goodbye, Mr. Cooper. What is it?
I don't like the whole change that's come over you. And I have to tell you the truth, and I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. And shame the devil.
Change? What do you mean?
Well, up to a year ago, I used to like you a lot. And I used to watch you as you did everything. And then you began spending all your time on baseball. And you didn't stop to speak to anyone. Not even your own family did it. And George, it's a fact. You're awful stuck up and conceited. That's what all the girls say about you behind your back. And I have to agree with your mother. And I'm sorry for hurt your feelings, but I could not be sorry I said it.
I'm glad you said it, Emily. I never thought such a thing was happening. I guess it's hard for a man not to have a change in his character.
Well, I expect him to be perfect, and I think he should be.
Well, I don't think that's possible.
Well, I might as well tell you that I'm not perfect. It's more difficult for girls to be perfect than guys, because we're more nervous. And now, I don't know what made me say that. I don't know what came over me.
Emily.
I'm sorry.
Would you like to get an ice cream or something before you go home?
I think you're important.
Hello, Steve. Good afternoon, Miss Loco.
Hello, George. Hello, Emily. What do you have? Wait, Emily Webb, what have you been crying about?
She had an awful scare. She almost got run over by the hardware store wagon. Everybody says Tom Huckins drives like a crazy man.
Well now, you just take a drink of water. You look all shook up how you gotta look both ways while crossing Main Street these days. It gets worse every year. What do you have?
All the strawberry phosphate. Thank you this morning.
No, how about strawberry ice cream soda with me? 2 strawberry ice cream sodas.
2 strawberry ice cream sodas. Yes, sir, yes, sir. There are 125 courses in Grover's Corner this minute, I'm telling you. State inspector was in here yesterday, and now they're bringing these automobiles. Best thing to do is just stay home. Why, I remember when a dog could go to sleep in the middle of Main Street and have nothing come along to disturb them. There they are. Enjoy them. Yes, Miss Ellis, what can I do for you?
They're so expensive.
No, you don't think of that. We're celebrating our election. And then, you know what else I'm celebrating?
No.
I'm celebrating because I have a friend who tells me all the things that ought to be told.
George, don't think like that. I don't know maybe
No,
say
Emily,
it.
you stick to it. But I'm gonna change. You bet I'm gonna change. And then, can I ask you a favor?
What, George?
If I do go to State Agriculture College next year, could you write me a letter every once in a while?
I certainly will. I certainly will, George. It seems like you get out of touch with things staying away for 3 years. And maybe Grover's Corner is boring compared to all New Hampshire. But I think it's a lovely town.
Emily, the day wouldn't come when I wouldn't want to know everything that happens here. I know that's true.
I'll try to keep my letters interesting.
You know, every time I see a farmer, I ask him if it's even important to go to State Agriculture College to be a good farmer.
Why, George?
Yeah, and some of them even say that it's not. You can get all that information anyway out of the pamphlets that the government sends out. And Uncle Luke's getting old. He's about to retire. I could start taking over the farm now, if I could.
My.
And if what you said about meeting new people, gosh, if anything like that happens, I don't want to go. I guess new friends aren't any better than old friends. And you're one of the closest friends I've got. I think that's just as important.
But George, maybe you shouldn't go. Or maybe you should go. Maybe you should learn all of that cattle judging and soil. But of course, I don't know.
Emily, I'm going to make up my mind right now. I won't go.
I don't see why you would decide right now. It's a whole year away.
Emily, I'm glad you spoke to me about that flaw in my character. Everything you said was true, but one thing wasn't, and that's when you said that I haven't thought about anyone for a year. And you, for instance, I always thought of you as one of the chief people I thought about. And I always made sure of who you were with or where you were, and for 3 days now I've been trying to walk home with you. And yesterday, for instance, I was leaning against a wall and you walked home with Miss Caterina.
Why, George? Life's awful funny. I don't know why I love that.
Emily, I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to say that in college. I think that once you found someone who's fond of you, and you're fond of him as well, and who cares about you, I think that's just as important as saying there's one as well. Even more so.
I think it's very important as well.
Emily.
Yes, George?
Emily, if I do make a big change, could you? I mean,
I am now. I always have been.
so I guess this is important talk.
Yes.
Wait just a minute and I'll let you know. I'll have to go home and get the money I owe you.
What's that? George Gibbs, do you mean to tell me?
Yes, but I had my reasons. Here's my gold watch to hold until I get back.
That's all right. Keep your watch. I trust you.
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
I'll trust you 10 years, George, not a day over. All over your shop, Emily?
Yes, Miss Morgan. It was nothing.
Right.
Well, let's get on with the wedding. There are a lot of things to be said about a wedding, and there are a lot of thoughts that go on during a wedding. We can't, of course, fit them all into one wedding, especially not one here in Grover's Corners, where they're awfully plain and short. In this wedding, I play the minister. I think that gives me a little bit more time to say some things about it. No, there's a lot of confusion in a way. Deep down in people's minds. We thought that ought to be in our play too. For a while now, the play gets pretty serious. Some churches say that marriage is a sacrament. I don't quite know what that means, but I can guess. Like Mrs. Gibbs said earlier, everybody's made to live 2 by 2. The real hero of this scene isn't on stage at all, but you know who that is. It's like what one of those European fellas said. Every child born into this world is nature's attempt to make a perfect human being. Well, we've seen nature pushing and contriving for some time now. We all know that nature's interested in quantity, but I think she's interested in quality too. That's why I'm in the ministry. Don't forget all the other winners of this wedding, the ancestors. Millions of them. Many of them set out to live 2 by 2 as well. Millions of them. Well, that's my sermon. It wasn't very long anyway.
I don't know why I should be crying. I suppose there's nothing to cry about. But it came over me today at breakfast. There was Emily, eating her breakfast as she's done for 17 years. And now, she's going off to eat it in somebody else's house. And Emily, she suddenly said I couldn't eat another bite. And she put her head down and she cried. Well, I've got to say it. There's something downright cruel about sending our girls into marriage this way. I do hope her girlfriends have told her a thing or two. I know it's cruel, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I went into it blind as a bat myself. The whole world's wrong. That's what's the matter. There they come.
Hey, George! George. Look at him, fellas. He looks scared to death.
Don't look so innocent, you old geezer.
We know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
That'll do, that'll do. That's enough of that. There used to be a lot of this sort of thing in the old days. Hoping later, we're more civilized now, so they say.
George, what's the matter?
Mom, I don't want to grow old. Why is everybody pushing me so?
Wait, George, you want it?
No, Ma, listen to me.
No.
Mom,
No.
listen to me for the last time. All I want is to be a fella.
Shh. Now, if anyone should hear you, don't stop. Like, I'm ashamed.
Where's it?
Oh, George, you give me such a turn.
Cheer up. I'm getting there.
Just let me catch my breath a minute.
Now, Ma, say Thursday nights. Emily and I are coming to dinner every Thursday night. Ma, what are you crying for? We've got to get ready.
I've never felt so all alone in all my life. And George over there, looking so... I hate him. I wish he were dead. Papa! Papa!
Emily, what's the matter?
Papa, I don't want to get married.
Everything will be all right.
Why can't everything stay just the way it is? We can go away.
Now stop and think a minute, Emily.
Oh, Papa, don't you remember all the time you used to say, all the time you said, I was your girl. We could go away. I could work for you. I could keep house.
Emily, you mustn't think of such things. Here. George, come over here a minute. Why, you're marrying the finest young man in town. George is a fine fellow. George, I'm giving away to my daughter to you. Do you think you can take care of her?
I want to, Mr. Webb. I want to try. Emily, I'm going to do my best. I love you. I need you.
That's all I want. Just someone to love.
I will. Emily.
And I mean forever. You hear me? Forever and ever.
Come quick. They're waiting for us. Now you know everything will be all right.
You, George, take this woman.
Perfectly lovely. Loveliest man I ever saw. I should do love a good one, don't you?
I do.
And you, Emily, take this man, George.
I don't know when I've been to such a nice one. But I always cry. I don't know why it is.
young people so happy. Don't you?
I've married over 200 couples in my day. Do I believe in it? I don't know. Mr. marries Mrs. Millions of them. Cottage, the go-kart, Sunday afternoon drive, the Ford, rheumatism, the grandchildren, the death throes, the reading of the will. Once in 1,000 times, it's interesting. Well, let's have the wedding lunch.
Aren't they a lovely couple? I'm sure they'll be happy. That's the important thing. The important thing is to be happy.
That's the second act, folks. 10 minutes intermission.